We're here today with musician Steve Hill, singer, guitarist, drummer, bassist. He's a one-man band. He's got a new album out here. It's called Hanging on a String. Steve, how you doing today?
Hey, Dustin, how's it going? I'm good.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, Steve, I'm sure this is the first thing everyone asks you, but for the listeners out there maybe who haven't discovered you yet, can you describe a little bit about your music and your playing style and how all that came about?
Well, I'm a one-man band. First and foremost, I'm a guitar player, but I'm also a singer, and I was a guitar player and a singer for a long time, and then about 12 years ago, I became a one-man band. So what that means is that I'm playing drums at the same time as I'm playing the guitar, and I've modified my guitars so that you hear a bass. You hear the bass as I'm playing. I'm playing with my fingers, so with my thumbs, I'm doing the bass lines, and I'm standing up on two pedals, one of them hitting the bass drum, the other one hitting the snare. I have a drumstick on my guitar's headstock that plays the hi-hat and the cymbal. So what you hear is the sound of a power trio, but it's just me, and I play blues rock.
Yeah, I don't know how you developed this idea and this style. I mean, I've played in bands before, and singing and playing at the same time isn't easy. I can't imagine throwing the drums in there and the bass. I mean, you got to be a pretty coordinated dude.
Well, it's just like anything. The more you do it, the better at it you get. And I didn't think I never thought I'd do that. I was very happy as a guitar player. But what happened is that 12 years ago, I had bought a studio, and I had this huge mortgage every month, and my career wasn't really doing well. So in order to keep on paying the band, and the studio fees, I started doing these solo shows on the side. At first it was just guitar vocals, and then I got the bass drum. Eventually I added the other foot. At first it was just the hi-hat, and I had this studio which wasn't booked. Nobody was coming to the studio. So I had all this time in the studio. I decided to do a solo album and record everything live. It was more basic at first, and that was Solo Recordings Volume 1, which came out in 2012, and it outsold everything that I had done before, or pretty much since, And then I did Volume 2 in 2014. This one won the Juno Award, which is like the Canadian Grammy. And I just kept at it, and I just kept adding stuff, So at first it was just guitar, vocals, bass drum, then the hi-hat, eventually the snare, eventually the cymbal. And, I couldn't have learned to do all these things at the same time, but I had been a guitar player and a singer for like 20 years before I started doing the one-man band thing, And then it's just like 125 shows a year, and a lot of practice will get you up to point,
Well, Steve, who are some of the guys that you looked to for inspiration as far as guitar playing? I got sort of like an Albert Collins vibe maybe when I first heard you. Am I way off base there?
I love Albert Collins. I actually met him when I was 18. And all of these, like I mentioned earlier, I play with my fingers. So all of these blues guys like Hubert Sumlin, who played with Howlin' Wolf, who I also played with back in 97. He came to Montreal, and my band were his backup band, and that was pretty awesome. And Jimmy Vaughn, and like older stuff like Robert Johnson, and then like Dwayne Allman, and bands like Judas Priest and Waylon Jennings, and I love music in general, and I'm influenced by a lot of that stuff, and I also love Jerry Garcia, and the list goes on and on,
Well, tell us a bit about the new album, Hanging on a String. What are the listeners in for with the new one here?
Well, it's an album that I recorded at Studio 606 in Los Angeles, and it's produced by Daryl Thorpe, 10-time Grammy winner Daryl Thorpe, who has worked with the Foo Fighters. As you may know, Studio 606 is the Foo Fighters studio, and it was recorded live in the studio. I'm playing everything at the same time. It's a pretty rockin' record. I've done blues records in the past, but usually I mix blues and rock. It's still blues rock, but it's a bit more on the rock side. And I think it's my I really think it's my best album so far. I'm very proud of this one.
Well, Steve, when you're in the studio, are you working with anyone else, or are you doing all the writing and the playing and the producing, and are you handling everything off the stage as well as on?
Well, like I mentioned, for this album, it was produced by Daryl Thorpe, and there was also Brian Laudenschlager, co-producer, and he was the executive producer for the album. And I played everything, but I had a great team. Awesome engineer Oliver Roman. So we had a great team over there. When I'm on tour, I'm on my own, but I have a crew with me. I have a sound man and a backliner. I couldn't do it all on my own, that's for sure.
That's got to be tough for the engineer. If it's one guy that's playing everything live at the same time, that's a lot of pressure on him to make sure he gets everything right.
Well, I mean, it's the sound is pretty balanced. Like I have a studio at home, and sometimes I do recordings on for social media with just my phone, and the sound is there. You hear the bass, you hear the guitar, the drums, and it's pretty together, and it's pretty tight. Even when it's loose, it's tight. So the tempo can wave, but all the instruments are waving together. So that makes it easier in a way, and in other ways, I guess it's a bit more complex because I'm singing while playing drums. So the vocals get into the drum mics, but since it's recorded live, it's not that big of a problem.
Well, with that being said, when you're writing songs, is it more challenging when you have to limit it to just one person playing, or is it more rewarding, or how does that process for you?
Well, the way it works is that in the past, since I'm influenced by a bunch of different things, sometimes I'll listen to jazz for a while, and then I'll listen to hard rock, and then I'll listen to country, and I'm influenced by that stuff, and I can go in many directions, But by being a one-man band with the limitations that I have from that, it sort of gives me a focus, and it gives me a direction, because there's a lot of things that I can't do, So it sort of enabled me to find my sound, although on this record, it's pushed a lot further than before. And as far as the songwriting goes, like for this record, what I do is I record for like 45 minutes in my home studio and then listen to it. And I just jam for 45 minutes and come up with ideas. And then I develop these ideas. And I work the lyrics with a friend of mine called Johnny Pilgrim, who's a Canadian who lives in Los Angeles. And it was actually pretty quick, like that we wrote these songs. It happened. I wouldn't say it was easy, but it took a couple of months, but I think we did a very good job. Johnny is a great lyricist.
Awesome, man. Again, Steve Hill is with us, so we're talking about the new album, Hanging on a String. And what's the blues scene like in Canada? Is it pretty vibrant, or is it competitive? Or I guess you don't hear a lot of it in the States, I guess, as far as the blues scene goes.
Yeah, well, you guys have a pretty awesome blues scene, so you don't need the Canadian blues scene, Well, it's what it is, I don't necessarily play the blues scene as much as, like I have fans that have been coming to see me for years, and they're not necessarily blues fans, but sometimes they're rock fans. So I don't only have the blues fans, because that can be quite limiting. So a lot of people, like in my home province in Quebec, they're not necessarily that much into blues as they're into guitar music. Like I mentioned earlier, what I do is a mix of blues and rock. I don't do traditional blues. I don't have, I don't pretend to be a blues man. I never did. I love that music. I'm influenced by it, but it's part of what I do. It's not. I don't consider myself a blues musician.
Well, Steve, it looks like you're going to be on tour here throughout Canada through the rest of the year and into next year as well. Is it possible you'll be making maybe a trek through the States at all? Could we see you here?
Yeah, we're working on that. I think we'll have some shows next summer. probably in the fall of 2025 too. Hopefully, we can get a team together and book a nice tour of the States. We're trying to make it happen.
Awesome, man. Well, again, hanging on a string just out here. What else are you up to? Anything else we should be looking out for coming up?
Well, the new album is coming out November 1st. New single November 1st. There's already two singles out, World Gone Insane and Devil's Handyman, available on Spotify and everywhere. And you can pre-order the album on stevehillmusic.com.
Well, Steve, again, the new album sounds great, and I really appreciate your time today, and hopefully we can see you come through the States here next year.
Yeah, hopefully so. Thank you so much.
And again, that was Steve Hill. Get his new album, Hanging on a String, available now.